Imagine this, you've been playing Clash Royale for almost a decade. You've seen many new characters introduced, balance changes, and communities ranting and crying about everything. But there's something very cool that has been overlooked by many, and probably even you too. You've mainly been focusing on their stats rather than their designs or origin stories. Where are they from? What are they up to? Why are they here? Are they villains or heroes? Buckle up, folks, because we're going over every suspicious card in the game and ranking them based on one question. Which card is the biggest villain in Clash Royale? You might be surprised by some of the cards that make this list. But before we dive into that, let's clear something up. This isn't about real-life war crimes. Don't worry, we're not getting too dark here. Nobody's breaking Geneva Conventions. But it's no secret that many of these cards are up to some pretty shady stuff. Barbed weapons, poison, firebombs, you name it. Instead, we're going to focus on their in-game actions and their stories, looking at the lore and even the Clash-orama episodes to figure out why these characters are more villainous than you might think. From the least to the most evil, we'll break down exactly what makes them stand out as the baddest of the bad. Starting off the list is everyone's favorite big-eyebrowed maniac with a gun, the Hunter. True to his name, he carries a large double-barreled shotgun. From his design alone, he kind of resembles an old classic grandpa who hunts deer and maybe even bears in the forest. Now, is this considered a crime? Well, as harsh as it may sound, it's not illegal to hunt if it's done under certain circumstances and during open season. One must also have a hunting and gun license, which most likely he does have since he's a hunter. The laws may differ between countries, but I believe the Hunter is from Finland, mainly because Supercell is a Finnish company. In Finland, you do require a hunting and gun license, which he presumably has. He's just a regular old hunter by story, and that's why he's the least evil. Next up, the Elixir Collector. And I'll say this one short. There isn't any lore to this card because it's literally a mechanical contraption that collects elixir. And that might be the problem. What if it's collecting elixir illegally? But, according to US law, if you somehow find oil on your land, it's still considered your property. You just need mineral rights, which are included with your property rights. But then again, the land you own is still considered to be American government's property, so technically it's not actually yours. Or is it? It's pretty confusing. Traditionally, both mineral rights and surface rights used to be part of the same, property rights, but they have been separated from one another in areas where oil and gas production are frequent. So, depending on where you live, if you find oil on your property in the US, it can technically be yours, but also not. It's pretty confusing. But to stay pretty short, the land is most likely owned by the king and his kingdom, so collecting elixir with the Elixir Collector shouldn't be a problem. After the Elixir Collector, we've got the Mega Knight. Yeah, I'm not joking. You may be thinking, ARCTO, what the heck? Who thinks the Mega Knight is kind? Well, wait until you hear about its lore. But before that, let me tell you about Raycon. Raycon is your everyday earbud for any situation, whether you're gaming, working out, or even just trying to escape the chaos around you. Trust me, these aren't your regular earbuds. The sound is crystal clear, they fit comfortably, and they're built to keep up with your lifestyle. I use these everywhere, whether I'm editing videos, running, at the gym, or let's be real, sitting on the toilet watching replays of me getting 3-crowned. And let me tell you, the active noise cancellation, it is actually pretty elite. If you've got an annoying girlfriend, noisy parents, or just hate hearing people talk, Raycon's got your back. Just pop these in and suddenly it's just you, your game, and pure premium audio bliss. Oh, and they really last forever. 32-hour battery life, and if you somehow manage to drain them, just 10 minutes of charging gives you 90 minutes of use. And those colors? Super clean. I got mine in black, but they've got a bunch to match your style. Also, check this out. Their capsule charging case is fire. Wireless charging, sleek design, and I never have to take the case off to charge. It is just, well, easy. So if you want some top-tier audio without spending twice as much on those overpriced brands, go to buyraycon.com/ARCTO to get up to 20% off site-wide. That's right, 20% off everything, including all of their headphones. Click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/ARCTO and get yours today. Now, let's get back to the Mega Knight. I don't know if you can tell, but my coffee's finally kicking in. If you've been following Clash Royale's lore drops on YouTube Shorts, you might have come across this short, Mega Knight's Lore Drop. We get to hear Mega Knight's big secret. And it's that even though he is massive, he has very delicate hands that are hiding in those big iron clubs. He's actually the byproduct of bullying in night school. It was always laughed at by his fellow knights for having such small and pristine hands, and even hid his face in the yearbooks. That's why he decided to hide his face with a big iron helmet, and most importantly, cover his hands with big iron clubs. He gained such destructive power that he graduated from night school in 1 week, because it was simply way too dangerous to be around with students and teachers. He was a kind guy until he found out that a copy of his old yearbook still existed and was owned by someone unknown, possibly the Red King. So, enraged, he started destructively jumping in the arena, determined to find the one who had his embarrassing picture. So you see, the Mega Knight isn't a villain by nature. He's just trying to hide and protect his image from his past, where he was mocked and laughed at for having such, childish hands. Mega Knight isn't a villain, but society is. And society is what makes villains. However, in my book, Mega Knight is just a kind character who just doesn't want to remember his past. Though I agree, he's a massive pain in the underside to fight against. Next up, we have a combo, the Lumberjack and the Log, which should technically be discussed separately, but we're doing them together because their lore is very closely related. From the Lumberjack's description, we read, he chops trees by day and hunts the log by night. But why is he hunting the log? The answer lies in the log's description. A spilt bottle of rage turned an innocent tree trunk into the log. Now it seeks revenge by crushing anything in its path. Why seek revenge and on whom? Well, it's obvious. The Lumberjack. The Lumberjack chops down wood as part of his job, and one day he accidentally spilt his rage bottle on an innocent cut-down tree trunk, giving it spikes and the ability to move around and crush others. The Lumberjack needs to put an end to this, which is why he's hunting it down before it causes more trouble. From these two cards, the Log is obviously way more evil than the Lumberjack because it crushes everything that's in its way to get its revenge. It's doing all this to kill the Lumberjack, who's been chopping down tree after tree, probably chopping off his friends and possibly his family. That's why he's a villain. But to be honest, not everyone is an environmentalist. Wood is wood. I mean, it's meant to be chopped. I mean, to a reasonable extent. Protect our planet, guys. So you really can't say who's evil here. It's like a paradox Lumberjack caused and is trying to fix. In the end, I think the Lumberjack is a normal, hardworking wood chopper who's just doing his job. He's not evil, but he's not a saint either. If anything, the hunter should be in his place because he hunts living animals. But hunting and chopping wood are essential for human survival, so it wouldn't make sense to really give either of them the evil label. So, take that, vegans. Next up, the Prince. Same story as the Mega Knight, he has a surprising backstory from his lore drop short. Apparently, Prince isn't a brave, handsome, and strong noble like his brother, Dark Prince, which we'll talk about later. But he's a massive wimp who is filled with fear during every battle. The real hero appears to be his trusty little pony. This may sound ridiculous, but the pony has dreams of getting promoted to a prince one day, following in the footsteps of the Dark Prince, who rose through the ranks with his skills alone. Pony charges into battle and wins, but unfortunately, as soon as the battle is over, Prince wakes up and takes all the glory away from it. I know this lore drop isn't accurate with the gameplay, but if you think about it, it kind of fits. Just like the Golden Knight, he looks confident, strong, brave, steals ladies' hearts, but in the end, they're just wimps. Though I can't say the same for the Dark Prince. Even though he looks scary and evil, he's a brave, kind guy, and most importantly, he isn't a wimp. But you know who also isn't a wimp? The average ARCTO subscriber. So scroll down quickly and hit that button. I promise you won't regret it. For our next character, we've got the Executioner, and our take on him will be heavily based on the Clash Royale episode titled Clone Alone. But let's go over what the game tells us first. He throws his axe like a boomerang, striking all enemies on the way out and back. It's a miracle he doesn't lose an arm. And yeah, he looks dangerous. He looked terrifying on his old card image as well, just look at that smile. He has his position as an executioner in the King's Kingdom. He's an official who effects a sentence of capital punishment on a condemned person. In the executioner's case, he has a massive axe, which was used to chop off heads. We get an impression that he's a very scary dude who kills prisoners that are sentenced to death in the kingdom, and that makes him evil. However, Clash Royale and some changes in the game tell a completely different story. From the start of the episode, we see the executioner as an unsocial wimp who likes to stay alone in his house. honestly relatable. His name is Edward. He's afraid to go out and doesn't want to bother anyone else, not even his own parrot. He makes his friends out of trees with his big trusty axe. However, when it's battle time, he acts normally and does his job, just like we see him in game. He likes to cook and, well, be alone, but he wasn't like that in the past. This whole episode goes over how nervous he is and, in the end, how his clone ends up flipping his life around. What happens after these events is the executioner we see in-game. So I'd like to say he's still a kind person at heart who probably has never executed anyone in his life. He just has that executioner title from, well, somewhere. Next, we got the cutie, our beloved little rascal, the bandit. She is what she's called, a bandit, and what do bandits do? They bandit things, beat someone up, stealing, breaking into houses, and all that. But the bandit has something no other bandit has: her cuteness. She's carrying around a wooden sword, which isn't as bad as an actual sword. However, she is still called the bandit, so she's not a saint, nor too evil, just a little bit evil. The same goes for the rascals. They're a bit mean, unprincipled, and maybe dishonest as well. Those are definitions of the word rascal. They're mischievous and cheeky, even to themselves. We don't really know much about them. They're just annoying little girls who shoot bubblegum, and that's basically it. After the rascals, I'd like to say a little bit about the Electro Giant. First off, I don't think it's legal to, walk around and shock people. That hurts a lot. Why is he zapping literally everyone else around him? That's bad and kind of evil and pretty weird. Oh, and Firecracker. Oh boy. As much as I hate her for being a total demon in-game, she cannot be considered a villain at all. She's just annoying to deal with, and that's all. If Supercell ever wants to make an evil character, their first inspiration should literally be Firecracker. The next small but extremely annoying character is one that everyone has despised since day one: the Little Prince. I don't really need to go into too much detail about why he's irritating. Almost everyone has had their own frustrating experience fighting him. We even made a video on him, which you should definitely check out. In that video, we dive into his lore and backstory, revealing that he's actually a fake champion and a thief. To briefly recap, he stole the contract that was meant for the Royal Recruit, a contract that was supposed to go to a real champion, which we never got. Instead of the true champion, he swapped in a picture of himself. He is a mischievous thief in the service of the Red King, easily making him our first small villain in the video. But what about the witches? Well, I think they deserve their own section. While I don't think they're necessarily evil, they are still witches who possess powers of summoning the undead. Other characters like wizards have abilities too, like shooting fire, electricity, ice, but they don't do anything bad. Witches don't do anything bad either, other than, summoning skeletons and bats, excluding the Mother Witch who turns troops into pigs, which, is pretty evil. No one wants to become a pig by their will, so technically Mother Witch is a bit evil in that regard. But the regular witch and night witch are okay. They don't really do anything evil other than babysitting their creations. Skeleton King is another character I have mixed opinions about. He's a strong ancient king who has the ability to summon skeletons, and characters that do the same in other games or stories are usually considered evil. Why not take advantage of that ability and take over? But Skeleton King is different. Even though he has his ability and he is a champion, he hasn't done much stuff other than being dead and resting on his dusty throne. We don't know much about his background story or where he came from, what kind of king he is, or if he's evil or kind, what happened to him, etc. If you want a deeper look at his lore, you should check out one of our latest videos about the Skeleton King, where we go over his lore and come up with a pretty strong theory of who he might be. But for this video, I think he's a bit evil, but there's a large chance he's just a kind old dude. He definitely isn't a demon, nor is he a saint. Same with P.E.K.K.A, but P.E.K.K.A's just a sweetheart no one dares to talk bad about. Though the same can't be said for her child, the Mini P.E.K.K.A. As you all know, Mini P.E.K.K.A really loves pancakes. So much, in fact, that he sees other people as pancakes, exactly like the Pyro from a game called Team Fortress 2, if you've ever heard of it. Good old Pyrovision. He completely mutilates goblins in an animation called Pancakes Everywhere that's on Clash Royale's YouTube channel. It seems like a fun animation at first, how he cuts through goblin pancakes and all, but if you really think deep about it and try to see it from outside that pancake vision, the real scene must have been graphic as hell. Next up, we got goblins in total. They're evil and horrible monsters in other fictional movies or stories, but in Clash Royale, they're goofy thieves who love nothing but gold and elixir. Thank God. Both in Clash of Clans, Clash-orama, and Clash Royale, they're mischievous thieves who deal a lot of damage when they're confident. Who's the evilest of goblins? Well, let's go over all of them. First up, the Goblin Gang. It's just a gang of goblins. They're evil maniacs, but they're the least evil. After the goblins, we have baby goblins that were in the game during the goblin season. From Clash Royale's lore drops, we figure out that goblins actually get dumber as they age, which means that the babies are the smartest of them all. They're the ones who created the goblin barrel and the rocket, but grown-up goblins take all the credit for them. The baby goblins want to have fun, but by doing that, they cause damage, which, makes them a little evil. Goblin Giant is just Shrek, but more disgusting and evil. Suspicious Bush is just another skilled bandit, and there's not much to say about the other goblins, unlike the two goblins we'll talk about now. Goblinstein. I mean, do I have to say anything? Just look at him. He literally created a real Frankenstein of his own. And if we look around his little lab, we can see all sorts of bad stuff, like a decapitated barbarian head in a jar. He's a mad scientist who probably has experimented on a lot of dead bodies, mutilating and chopping them up to make his work. As far as I know, you can't own someone's dead body. No one has the right to it in the modern world, at least, so creating a Frankenstein monster, even though it's not possible, would be extremely dangerous and illegal. It's just wrong. Giving it brain rot and making him say skibbity wouldn't change anything. I'm not kidding. If you paid close attention, you'd have heard the Goblinstein monster say skibbity from the announcement video, which is really, really stupid. Come on, Supercell. So what goblin could possibly be any worse than Goblinstein? Well, friends, if you played the Goblin season in 2024, you would have absolutely seen the Goblin Queen. Supercell dropped a new animation video on their Clash Royale channel titled Goblin Queen's Takeover. Blue King meets the Goblin Queen in her jungle empire, where she's been preparing for a takeover for a very long time. He sees armies, tons of machinery, weapons, gold, everything the Queen would need for a full-scale takeover. And who knows how many bad things she's done to start her empire. Probably a lot of bad things, which makes her one of the biggest villains inside Clash Royale lore ever. But what if I told you there's a villain much greater than the Goblin Queen? Well, he exists, and you see him every time you log into the game. You don't even need to launch the game, you already see him on the game icon. The King. So is it the blue or the red king? Well, generally the red king is shown as the evil one and blue as the noble one, so we'll take the red king as the villain here. Just think about it for one moment. These two kings set up tournaments where they battle each other with their pawns, the cards we use in the game. And who knows if they're there of their own consent? He's the king, how could they possibly disobey him? And while researching info for the video, I found a comment which read this. The king also does kidnapping, because in a banned commercial, the king can be seen kidnapping an archer from an archer tower and bombing the archer tower after the other archer notices the king. Not only once, but twice. It proves that some of the characters are there in the arena without their consent, risking their lives for the king to win a simple, dumb game. Who knows what else he's done? Well, we might never know. The documents of his crimes are most likely burned. But that begs the question, what are your thoughts on the king? It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts, so write them down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't miss out on this video where I take you on the complete journey through every single skeleton card and their history over the years. It is one of my personal favorites on the channel, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. I'll see you there. And don't worry, I should be feeling better by the time the next video drops, so yeah.